Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into the somber world of medieval executioners. Picture yourself wrapped in your coziest blanket, maybe with a sleepy little dog curled at your feet, while the soft hum of an ancient fridge echoes in the background. It's late, the clock has ticked past 11, and you're settling in for one of those stories that feels like an old dusty book coming to life. Stories that may be, well, a bit grim, but cozy in a what were they thinking sort of way. You might feel a little weird about it, but trust me, you probably won't survive this journey into the life of someone whose job it was to make the ultimate end. You know, just your casual bedtime tale. Before you get too comfy, feel free to tap like or subscribe, but only if you're genuinely enjoying the calm around here. Seriously, no pressure, just good vibes. And hey, while we're at it, drop a message in the comments telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little journey stretches. Now, go ahead and lower the lights, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's drift gently into tonight's story together. So, picture this. You're strolling through a quaint medieval village, past the cobblestone streets and charming cottages with smoke curling lazily from chimneys. Everything seems peaceful enough during the day, but as the sun sinks low, shadows flicker ominously across the town square. Every corner you turn whispers stories of a world filled with gallows and grim tidings. It's a Thursday, or probably a Tuesday. Honestly, every day feels the same when you're living in the Middle Ages. Now, one of the most misunderstood figures in this chilling tableau is none other than the executioner. That's right, the person everyone is trying to avoid at parties, like the guy who brings kale salad to a pizza night, or the one who can't seem to grasp the concept of reading the room. Imagine being that person. How would you even swipe right on Tinder? Hey there, I specialize in capital punishment, but I promise I'm a great listener. Kind of a tough sell, right? But really, executioners were often just regular folk swept up in a profession that nobody wanted but someone had to do. We're talking about a payoff that consisted not of glitzy gold coins, but rather loaves of bread and barrels of barley, because that's totally what gets you through the day. Imagine trying to explain that at a family reunion. So, what do you do for a living? I make a living by overseeing executions and sometimes barter my deal for a couple of rolls. And it's important to remember that their existence comes with all sorts of quirks and fun facts. For example, these guys often had their own special dress code. We're not talking about tuxedos or anything posh like that. Nope, they donned these outlandish capes, styled to stand out in the crowds. Can you imagine being the executioner in a medieval gaudy fashion show? Picture it, strutting down the runway with a grim expression, cape flowing like a dramatic moment in a soap opera, while the judges raise signs like 10-10 for gruesome elegance. Now let's travel back to the nature of their grim duties. They were seen as both moral guardians and societal pariahs, which is kind of a weird mix. It almost makes you think of how some of us have that one friend who insists they can't live without their mean coffee, acting all superior while secretly they're crying over their 5th cup of the day. Executioners, while necessary, were shunned at social gatherings to the point where the whole town would be like, yeah, you handled the executions, but we'll be over here, sipping on our ale and pretending we don't hear the gallows creaking. But hang on a second. Here's where it gets spicy. Historians still argue whether these executioners were simply cold-hearted figures, or if they were deeply affected by their jobs. You can almost visualize a cozy meeting of historians, sipping tea, engaging in heated debates. One says, listen, they were just doing their jobs, while another passionately counters with, no, they must have been haunted. And you sit there smiling, thinking, what if I just ran a TikTok account about them? I bet I could go viral. And there's more. Though they were feared, executioners also had their moments of strange glory. When a person was executed, it sometimes attracted crowds, large crowds who may have found themselves a little confused and amused. Kind of like when you tell your friends you're having a cleaning party, and then nobody shows up, but you put on your favorite podcast anyway. The townspeople would congregate, families including their tiny kids, snapping bread in anticipation of the spectacle. You can almost hear the whispers. Did you catch the last show? totally better than last week's. Wild to think about, right? I mean, sure, nobody wanted to be the one up on the gallows, but there was almost a carnival-like atmosphere. It's like when you scroll through your social media feeds, not to see the latest crazy things people are doing, but just to gather the hot gossip while you munch on stale chips, all cozy in your pajamas. Executioners were kind of celebrated at times, not for their skills, but for the simple fact that they were the grim centerpiece in the not-so-festive gatherings, leaving you to reflect on how twisted human entertainment can really be. Now, that said, imagine throwing medieval executioner-themed parties. Picture this. Your friends arrive in Grim Reaper robes with plastic swords. You serve behead the cake cupcakes, and every few hours, you light candles and pretend to hold mock trials in your living room. That sounds like an interesting evening, doesn't it? As we unravel the complex life of the medieval executioner, it's fascinating to think about how the modern world serves as a backdrop to these historical roles. Sometimes I wonder, what if they had smartphones and Instagram? I can almost picture their posts. Just finished a shift. Executioner life. Not a sadist. You can hear them chuckle and say to their friends, "Hey, look at my followers. They're here for the dark humor." How's the grand debate of morality in these dusty historians' meetings reflects our lives today, doesn't it? Like we scroll through endless memes about dark humor and laugh at our couches, questioning how far we really go to separate the job from the person. And all that just to ponder the reality of someone whose livelihood was riddled with end-of-life decisions, all while they sought a sense of purpose amid the shadows of history. So here you are, sleepy friend, as we slowly edge into the next part of our journey. The life of an executioner isn't just about black and white. It's a world painted in shades of grey and a splash of absurdity with all the warmth of home. Trust me when I say, you won't want to miss what comes next, as we delve deeper into their bizarre lives, quirky side gigs, and epic, I can't believe this is my life moments. As we nestle deeper into the folds of this peculiar narrative, let's keep wandering through this medieval village, where the cobblestones have heard more than their fair share of secrets and stumbles. The evening light dances lazily through the trees, creating flickering shadows that seem to tell tales of their own, almost like they could tell you something about the locals, especially the ones who, shall we say, put a bit of an interesting twist on every gathering. You can almost hear the whispers of history mingling with the sound of your tea kettle simmering in the background. Sip your tea, dear friend, as we continue unraveling the stitched-together life of the medieval executioner. Now here's a fun fact to chew on. During the Middle Ages, the executioner wasn't necessarily born into this grim role. No, instead, they often inherited the job or found themselves appointed due to circumstance. It's kind of like being randomly assigned that one role in your group project where you have to keep everyone in line and you're just praying nobody asks you for updates on deadlines at 2 a.m. Surprise! Guess who's coordinating the chaos again? But here's the kicker. Executioners, despite their grim tasks, often had unique perks of their trade. It wasn't all doom and gloom. In some cases, they were exempt from certain taxes and granted a bit of privilege in the community. Imagine striding through the market, waving at people who would flinch, half fearfully and half curiously, while you scoop up fresh produce, knowing you got a tax break just for being, well, you. People deal with everyday fears, like how to politely decline a social invitation. But here's our executioner, managing to snag the best cabbage in town without paying a dime. Sure, they can't stand to be around me when I've got my axe in hand, but hey, it's a decent cab fare. However, despite those peculiar perks, the job came with a significant emotional weight. Think of them like the ultimate dark roast coffee drinkers, both a bit misunderstood and chopped full of somber undertones. They couldn't just slip into the local tavern and expect everyone to toast to their health. They were met with stares, whispers, and sometimes even outright disdain. Historians continue to debate whether this emotional toll pushed them toward a darker part of their nature, or if they were just doing their jobs as morally neutral figures akin to that person in the office who has to enforce the rules. not the most beloved, but necessary. Oops, your lunch isn't allowed in the conference room. Cue the sighs and eye rolls. Take a moment to imagine this. Our executioner sits at the bar, nursing a mead, while the group excitedly chatters about their day's events and the joys of, say, regular life. No one talks about heads rolling. All they discuss is the latest sheep shearing festival or the new bakery opening down the street. Meanwhile, the executioner, nursing their drink with that slight furrow in their brow, ponders, maybe I could have gone into cake decorating instead. It conjures a visual that sends your mind wandering. You'd almost expect to see them posting regrets on their Instagram story while feeding their cat, trying to shake off the day's burdens in the most unusual, meme-worthy way. Here's another quirky tidbit. While being shunned by society, some executioners became local celebrities for their craft. It's crazy, right? At public executions, their skills were sometimes applauded by the crowd. Imagine a workshop mastermind running a trendy podcast today, claiming to have all the tips and tricks for a gratifying career. Want to learn how to chop vegetables like a pro? Check out my latest video. You can almost spot the crowds, tissue packets in hand, furrowing their brows while delving into the intricate science of agony and effect. What did he do this time? Bet it's more scandalous than last week. There's a particular example from a medieval executioner named Johann Georg, who was infamous for his elegance during beheadings. People marveled at how he could barely break a sweat, stylishly flipping his cloak as if he were at a fashion show instead of wielding an axe. You'd think folks would have taken to TikTok to record his performances, dubbing them executioner dance battles. Picture it, a duel with a metal axe, set to dramatic music as a roaring crowd cheers alongside captions like, "The true king of beheadings." As you meander through this history, you can't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. It's almost surreal how even in the darkest professions, there can exist shades of nonsense that make you wonder about the human experience. How did we even get here, where being an executioner turned into not just physical labor, but an entire performance piece? Historians still ponder whether they were actually viewed as craftsmen, experts of a trade whose skills superseded the horror of their jobs. Fascinating, isn't it? Now, that brings us back to people's perceptions of executioners during these times. Did you ever think their lives were touched by diseases that ran rampant through the Middle Ages? What a unique cocktail of dread. Given the prevalence of the plague, the townsfolk grew afraid of not just the executioner, but the very concept of death itself. It's like that weird phase when you finally discover horror movies and you're terrified of the dark, yet you can't help but watch another for a late-night scare. This also leads to the curious possibility that as the plague struck, executioners learned to navigate societal norms while wearing an invisible cloak of fear. Historians often argue whether this affected their reputation further. Did the general disdain for disease seep into the disdain for executioners, making them lonelier than ever? Innocent people couldn't differentiate between who was who anymore, just like how today, sometimes we mix up the difference between a spam email and a friend's urgent message when scrolling through notifications at 2% battery life. Isn't it intriguing how life has these weird parallels through centuries? The medieval executioner, residing in their lonely little world, begins to feel a lot like crafting effortless memes, just to get people to notice your creativity, even when you're the darkest corner in the gallery. Those moments of camaraderie at the tavern, trying to fit into a society that views you with uncertainty, it's almost heartwarming in a strange, darkly delightful way. As we stretch the blanket further across our laps, I think it's about time to settle in for what's next in this winding tale. We've skirted the edges of drama and light humor, touching on the quirky realities of life as it used to be, and flower pots await their chance to bloom as we explore the ongoing legacy of executioners. What will become of our lonely companions in darkness? Well, let's find out together as we drift gently into the next part. Settling into the focus of our next cozy chapter, let's reflect on how those medieval executioners found their place in society, not just as grim figures wielding axes, but as strangely complex characters shaping various narratives around them. As you snuggle deeper into your fuzzy socks while the world quiets around you, let's take a leisurely stroll down the memory lane of history, where myths intertwine with the truth and sprinkle just a bit of oddity across this dramatic canvas. Picture yourself again in that medieval market square. Sunlight streaming down, the smell of fresh bread wafting by, and the distant sounds of laughter mingling with whispers of fear. It's a good day in the village, and locals bustle in their everyday tasks. But hang on a second. What's that on the schedule? Oh, right. It's execution day. Honestly, it's like planning a field trip that nobody really wants to attend. Everyone shows up out of either morbid curiosity or a sense of duty. You can practically hear the collective sigh of, well, it's part of the job. Let's see how this plays out. You know, here's a wild but real historical tidbit. In several European societies, executioners had dual identities that would surprise you. They were not just responsible for dispensing justice, they were also called upon for various celebrations. Have you ever been to a party where the guilty conscience lurks, like when someone orders food after just grocery shopping, instead of doing the right thing? Imagine being at a feast and the executioner walks in carrying their axe for both the beheading and to partake in all the festivities, using their morbid title like some sort of medieval Instagram influencer who just can't resist the allure of the spotlight. One minute, I'm wrapping up an execution. The next, I'm cutting the cake. The irony is delicious. In fact, some even held the role of butchers, which takes the definition of dual profession to a level envy can't quite encapsulate. It's like saying you're a high school math teacher, but on the side, you're also an acrobat. I mean, how do you balance that? Historians still wrangle with the debate on whether this change of roles blurred the lines of morality for executioners. It prompts this heartfelt question: were they simply trying to make ends meet in a world riddled with growing fears? Or were they truly disconnecting from the gravity of their jobs? And while we're on the subject of oddities, here's something rather funny to consider. The townsfolk had their superstitions. It was said that seeing an executioner made your luck tumble downhill a few notches, as if stepping on a sidewalk crack would break your mother's back. So imagine this. You're out in the village and you catch a glimpse of the executioner at the marketplace, just there, stocking up on potatoes. The townsfolk whisper about how you might just be doomed. Oh no, you saw that axe wielder. Better call in the spiritual advisor. You have to wonder about the mixed bag of emotions these executioners strolled about with on a daily basis. I mean, could they even try to get a good loaf of bread without a lingering fear of gossip? It's as if their entire persona existed in a soap opera plotline where humor and despair danced a delicate tango. Yes, I know. I could be the life of the party. But also, everyone knows me for that thing I do on Thursdays. Now, imagine scrolling through social media as if it were the medieval equivalent of a town crier with a fancy Facebook page, sharing lives and loves between axe swings. Our beloved executioners could have made dedicated posts riffing on those wild stories that circulated about their jobs, riding the line between humor and horror. Caught between a rock and a hard place today, executed a new technique but dropped my coffee. A life is hard. Such jests, as grim as they might seem, could have been a kind of relief for those in the profession. Someone laughing through the haze of darkness while trying to stitch together a semblance of normalcy. They turned their lives into relatable memes long before the term even existed. It's all about flipping narratives on their heads, kind of like how you feel when you finally embrace the chaos of your own life. Scrolling through memes at midnight, when you should be sleeping, chuckling at something so relatable yet utterly ridiculous. With each exchange, as whispers spread through town, executioners held a key to certain authority. They served justice, but were also shunned. Isn't it reminiscent of those odd moments we all face? Like when you finally opt out of social media, only to find out how emotionally tiring it becomes to deal with life without the likes. Historians often puzzle over how the reputation of executioners shifted throughout time. Were they empowered as community pillars or burdened souls, bearing the weight of society's fears, almost like that friend who gets roped into being the designated driver, yet ends up facilitating all the post-party chaos? But let's wind back for a moment and breathe through these eccentricities. As people began crafting tales around executioners, stories that transformed into folklore, these figures took on larger-than-life personas. Picture the villagers weaving their narratives around the fireside as children listened, mouth agape, filled with wonder, slight horror, perhaps even some twisted admiration. Did you hear about old Eric the Executioner? Apparently, he can perform magic while he swings the axe. One flick and poof, no more heads. This folklore gave executioners an almost mythical status, encapsulating fears, legends, and the strange comfort of facing darkness together, much like how today we revel in true crime podcasts or binge true crime Netflix series late at night, wrapped up comfortably in quilt forts. You can hear the beats of curiosity, love, and horror brought together, creating a circle of camaraderie just through tales whispered in the night as we cozy up and scroll through our phones for another story. Now, it's fascinating to think about how these tales entwine society's fabric while simultaneously shaping our executions. Did their imperfections morph into larger-than-life reflections of ourselves? Historians still debate whether these figures weaved moments of fear and respect, shaping the ways communities handled justice and morality thereafter. Were executioners merely embodiments of societal flaws and fears, or did they represent a strange comfort in accepting the darkness inherent in humanity? As we sink deeper into this winding tale, I can already feel the weight of our next thoughts bubbling above the surface. Dare we explore more of these odd stories? More quirky riddles hidden between fact and fiction? Together, we'll peek further into the kaleidoscope of these striking lives, discovering strangeness amid the shadows they cast. Let's keep the late-night vibe going, my friend, as we trickle into the next part. There's quite a way to go on this curious path, and trust me, you won't want to miss where all this leads us. So grab your fuzzy socks and get settled. There's warmth and wonder awaiting in our continued adventures. As we lean back into this cozy narrative, let's take another step into the tangled web of folklore and legacy that surrounds our medieval executioners. The night outside whispers secrets of its own. Maybe it's the wind winding the branches into a lullaby, or perhaps it's simply the gentle hum of your sleepy home. Either way, let's pull the blanket tighter and venture further into tales that resemble both bedtime stories and cautionary fables. So let's get into the idea that executioners weren't just figures of fear. They were also strangely revered in some pockets of society. It's wild to think about, right? Like how folk heroes can arise from the most twisted circumstances. There were instances where executioners became characters in local folklore, almost like the medieval version of anti-heroes, with extravagant tales growing around their notoriety. Imagine a united front of village storytellers gathering to romanticize their exploits, akin to today's binge-worthy true crime documentaries featuring exhilarating tales of actual humans turned folk legends. Next up, join us as we explore the life of Eric the Efficient, executioner extraordinaire. Now here's a fascinating historical point that'll have you raising your eyebrows. Some executioners even established their own families and dynasties. They passed down their crafts through generations, with children as young as 10 being taught the family trade. Can you picture it? A little kid, maybe wearing an oversized cloak, trying to mimic the stern demeanor of their executioner parent. "Hey buddy, want to learn how to wield this axe?" It's kind of like that moment when your parents pass down the family recipe, except this one comes with a side of drama. Forget about grandma's pie. My granddad's execution techniques have been preserved over centuries. Seriously, talk about a career ambition. This lineage of executioners prompts even bigger questions. Historians still argue about whether being an executioner in a family line added an element of pride, or if it descended into a cycle of shame and social rejection. You might wonder how this came to be the family dinner topic. One person arguing the craft is a proud legacy, while another feigns a gag reflex over the idea of passing down something so morose. Are we seriously going to leave the family axe to the next generation? How about a pillow fight instead? Speaking of family dynamics, imagine those dinners. The table, burdened with a hearty stew and a side salad, while the uninvited conversational tensions simmer. So, how was your day in the execution world? Mum asks with an air of nervousness. Did you chop any heads today, honey? Meanwhile, the young apprentice rolls their eyes like they just heard. Did you do your homework? Most kids today don't face the challenge of following in their parents' footsteps amid social restrictions. Sometimes we just jokingly inquire who left their dirty dishes to pile up. Imagine the tales swapped around that table, concocting stories filled with elaborate accidents or epic fails. Last week, I almost dropped my axe, and you guys think I have trouble keeping my room tidy? At that point, one could chalk it up to some lively dinner entertainment, letting the legend grow amidst the clanking of bowls and half-hearted laughter. But, funnily enough, executioners weren't just grim taskmasters confined to dark tales. For every era, there are snippets of dry humor to unearth, reminding us that humor exists even in the darkest corners. Think of it like maintaining a friendship with your deepest fears, a sort of bizarre existential bond. Imagine an executioner sharing a joke. Why don't I ever go bowling? Because I can't stand the thought of a split. A heavy chuckle notwithstanding, whole taverns could erupt with laughter at the absurdity or sheer disbelief of the punchline. It's that gentle reminder of humanity peeking through the fog of grim duty. There's another quirky tidbit that's particularly eye-opening. In some regions, executioners were believed to possess unique abilities, almost akin to the mystical powers you'd find lurking in fairy tales. Supposedly, gaining an executioner's favor could lead to resolving serious afflictions, like how your high school friends could make or break your social standing based on who got invited to the exclusive parties. Oh, you've got a headache? Call old Eric. He's the axe wielder you need. This peculiar blend of folk wisdom and chilling reality seems to resonate through the ages, reflecting the comically intricate relationships we share with the things that terrify us. Just as some of us chase the latest horror films for cheap thrills, the occupants of medieval towns clung to grim stories while secretly whispering about the way of the axe. Imagine a bonfire night where everyone gathered, half scared and half excited, as they took turns telling tales of brave executioners, each embellishment more extravagant than the last. They say he could vanish without a trace, or at very least lose his lunch on the way to an execution. Amidst this grand tapestry of tales, it's easy to see how executioners transformed into compelling characters in oral traditions. They capture the imagination as figures carrying the weight of justice, tragedy, and comedy all in one. As we scroll through social notifications at midnight, hoping to catch up on the latest buzz or scrolling through memes about the mundane parts of life, we're reminded that humor and darkness often intertwine. It's like when you admit to binge watching a cleaning channel on YouTube. Who knew scrubbing floors could spark such roaring laughter? At the end of the day, we all long for that connection with the absurdities of life. Community gatherings filled with lore pass around like a warm blanket on chilly evenings, forging bonds amid the scream of horror from medieval tales. And thus, our discussions raise fundamental questions about morality and the nature of fate. We circle back to those historians, hunched over scrolls, chaotically pontificating on whether executioners were symbols of justice or mere pawns in an unforgiving game of life. It almost feels like judging how to define adulting in today's world. Like, should we even refer to that strange cycle of cleaning and avoiding our responsibilities? Did I really forget to reply to my emails for a week? I guess that makes me an executioner of my own to-do list. Hi. Now, as we glide deeper into this exploration, let's take a moment to allow ourselves that gentle laughter amid the darkness while we shift into the next part of this tale. Grab another sip of your warm drink and remember the quirks we've discovered about executioners. They were full, complex characters, worthy of deeper reflection. We'll unravel even more tales as we move forward, navigating the nuances of historical figures who wielded axes yet craved understanding and humor just like the rest of us. Let's drift together into what awaits beyond this cozy nook of history. As we draw nearer to the very soul of our narrative, let's soak in the peculiar realities of medieval executioners even further. Just like our cozy nook becomes warmer with each ripple of laughter we share, diving into these tales illuminates the extraordinary lives behind those grim faces. Those people whose professions carry the weight of history, even behind the shadows of their trade. So, shake off that lingering chill and bask in the glow of these stories. The kettle's still warm, and the night is still young, waiting for tales yet untold. Now, as we embark on the next segment of this journey, let's reflect on how the executioners actually approached their days. The role itself wasn't merely about swinging an axe and attending to the gruesome details. There was a whole process involved, right down to the preparation. Before each fateful event, they had to ready themselves mentally and physically. Imagine waking up to that impending task hanging over you like an anchor, knowing that the day held not just your usual chores of washing, but also the grim duty of ending a life. Talk about starting your day on the wrong foot. Honestly, can you imagine how many alarms they must have set, only to keep hitting snooze while dreaming of greener pastures? Just 5 more minutes and then, oh wait, I'm the one with the execution scheduled. And let's not forget the self-talk. Today, I will channel my inner zen, find the calm beneath the axe. It's a bit like when you're trying to summon the courage to have that tough conversation you've shelved for too long, mentally rehearsing how to sway the dialogues in your favor. Yeah, totally going to get the most productive version of myself out there after this coffee. Now, here's a strange but real fact. Executioners had specific training, often becoming apprentices under seasoned executioners. It's hard to visualize a training camp for those tasked with slicing through history's predicaments, but those privileged enough to ascend the ranks often partook in brutal lessons, akin to something right out of a self-help book gone dark. Want to master technique? Start with a potato. See how well you can slice without leaving a mess. This fascinating blend of practical skill and chilling artistry raises previous debates even further. Historians are still speculating whether this training provided its practitioners with deeper insights about life and death, or simply thickened their skins against the atrocities they committed. You know, much like many of us put up protective walls after seeing the sheer chaos of life, a reflex to shield ourselves from the impinging realities of the adult world. I totally didn't scroll through my feed for an hour, just trying to avoid that awkward email. An odd facet of their world becomes clear amid this bubbling turmoil. It wasn't solely about facing the condemned, it was also about managing oneself emotionally. Executioners dealt with layers of public scrutiny and fear, struggling to balance a work-life dynamic in which their work seemed to swallow any semblance of normalcy. Picture this. They might go home after a day of killing, only to find their family huddled together, having dinner, with lots of questions and curious stares. So, how was work today? It's the quintessential moment of realization when you tell your friends about your day and they suddenly look at you like you've declared you're moving to Antarctica. But here's where the quirks of social dynamics come alive. You'd think after such a hard day, these executioners would go home to hibernate, yet they strut about town like everyday people. You can imagine them stumbling into the local tavern, cloak-clad, positioning their axe more like an accessory than a tool, half hoping it doesn't get mistaken for a party prop. Hey there, just polishing my blade and unraveling the mysteries of the universe after work hours. As you might guess, it wasn't all doom and gloom in their lives. They needed humor to sustain them, much like we get through a tough day with friends' company, or streams of gifs shared throughout group chats. Their lives offered stories woven through laughter and absurdity. An executioner could go home and say, "Honestly, I had the worst day at work. My axe almost slipped." And the gathering could erupt with laughter, transforming a chilling admission into light-hearted banter shared over steaming pots of mulled ale. And let's not bypass the fact that executioners would sometimes charm their way into conversation. Picture this, a friendly quiz night down at the pub, everyone giddy with drinks and laughter. Our executioner addresses the crowd, cheekily saying, "So, if I shout 'heads up,' it could mean two things, right?" A ripple of chuckles might run through the room, a brief moment of joy that breathes life into the reality of a seesaw existence. Historians grapple with whether this humor mitigates the psychological effects of their jobs, or if it's a coping mechanism to make sense of the chaos. I mean, aren't we always drawn to laughter as a refuge? Much like how you engage with those relatable memes about text replies. LOL lives on in our hearts, even if I never actually laugh. It creates a shared experience, a bridge, a reminder of our humanity, despite the darkness that creeps in occasionally. But hark, as our narrative sways along this winding path, it's crucial to address how societal views toward executioners evolved over time. They navigated not only the complexities of their roles, but a shifting landscape of moral judgment. There were moments when a public execution would draw crowds, opinions swirling between horror and fascination. It's just like those moments we all get swept up into drama, standing together on the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Today on The Real Life Executioners, watch the ups and downs of beheadings and town gossip. Tales woven around executioners began to take their place alongside folklore and saga, where they assumed the role of desperate souls battling against the tide of their fates. It's this tug-of-war dynamic, and historians often debate whether this shift helped foster a certain celebrity status or merely deepen their isolation. Were they celebrated as traditional heroes, or were they locked in a relentless cycle of contempt? The curious could wonder, perhaps over their second cup of coffee, whether such ruminations mirror our existential dilemmas today. Sigh. Do I really put off my responsibilities for another night of Netflix without feeling guilty? And as we unfurl this narrative further, those intricacies become clearer. Executioners carved a legacy, how they managed personal identities against the backdrop of something grim. From midnight conversations filled with storytelling to laughter shared over dark pints, every function helped shape their own tales and emotional landscapes. So, as we slide into the final stretch of tonight's exploration, I can feel the curiosity bubbling around what lies ahead, filling the air with possibilities. This entire tapestry we've delved into has illuminated a curious bridge between amusement and doom, as we stitch together the oddities of medieval life with the themes that echo through our experiences today. With a deep breath, let us transition seamlessly into the next part of our adventure, where we'll unravel even more odd lives of executioners, showing just how much more there is to the stories we've only just begun to unravel together. As we seamlessly drift into the next chapter of our cozy exploration, let's take a moment to appreciate how the intricate lives of our medieval executioners have unraveled before our very eyes. Can you believe that beneath the shadow of their grim tasks lay layers of humanity that resonate far beyond their historical context? It makes you think about how we all juggle our identities within our modern lives, right? Just like that time you told your friends you'd totally get around to cleaning your apartment, but ended up watching 5 episodes of that quirky cooking show instead. To get back into it, let's dive deeper into the peculiar relationships these executioners had within their communities. As we snuggle into our blankets, it's worth considering how they vacillated between the roles of feared enforcers of justice and oddly respected community members. It's that curious dance of acceptance that leaves us pondering how they must have viewed themselves. I mean, did they feel more like much maligned heroes or perennial outcasts? One moment, you're the talk of the town, and in the next breath, everyone is steering clear like you just served them kale juice at a dinner party. No thanks, I already feel judged. Now here's a fun historical nugget. In some regions, executioners held a surprising degree of power. They could negotiate fines, influence local decisions, and exercise a certain prestige among common folk. Picture it. You could be sipping your morning tea, adjusting your frayed pajamas, and see old Baldric the Butcher, our very own executioner, entering the local tavern with his chest puffed up. That's right, I'm the one making the calls here. It was akin to when the hotshot from high school returns and everyone pretends they didn't just see them backflipping on TikTok. You're intrigued, but you also desperately need to maintain your cool status. This mixture of fear, respect, and power often resulted in a complex social standing. Executioners had their share of moments when they'd receive unwarranted, cheeky compliments while performing dreadful duties, usually with an audience watching intense and wide-eyed. It's like straight-out comedy versus tragedy, captured in the blink of an eye. Imagine a gaggle of townsfolk sneaking in winks at the executioner, whispering, "Hear that, old Eric? Your work's a killer." Yet navigating this strange duality must have been a laborious endeavor. Historians ponder whether the weight of expectations felt unbearable at times. Was it easier to wield an axe under a shroud of mystery, or traverse gossip roundtables, where the tales grew darker and perpetually warped? It's the same sort of dilemma we face today, juggling the pressure of social media presence while secretly finding solace in those who cling to their anonymity, hugging stacks of unfinished laundry, scrolling through cat videos to feel better about life. Now and again, executioners learn to play the crowd, having developed a unique rapport with those around them. Among their peers at the tavern, you could almost hear them bantering. "Ah, don't mind me, I'm just here for the casual beheading on Tuesday, and a round of ales on Wednesday." And somehow, despite the weight of their profession, they told tales that often twisted strange humor into the most macabre aspects of life. One poignant yet amusing story surfaces. A tale about an executioner who boasted he could be both executioner and healer. "What's wrong with your leg?" he'd say, brandishing his axe almost theatrically. "Just let me chop it off. You'll feel nothing of it." That infectious humor likely drew grins, maybe even laughter from the village, blending the lines of fear with a bizarre acceptance. It's easy to chuckle at the absurdity of it all, but it's also a fascinating portrait of how humor might have evolved as a protective mechanism, both for the executioner and the curious villagers. Much like when we send memes rather than having emotional conversations, history reveals how laughter, even the dark variety, may serve as a layer of insulation. And here's another twist. Executioners carried out people's wishes in an odd manner, epitomizing the very blend of practicality and tragedy within society. This duality, as much as it puzzled us, can mirror our own lives. The way we resolved conflicts within ourselves amid the wish for acceptance. The power dynamics of friendships can often feel similarly intricate, can't they? Am I allowed to hog the remote during movie night, or should we totally compromise? But hark, let's weave back to the discussions historians often have about executioners' roles. Were they mere vehicles of justice or foreboding paradoxes stripped of humanity? It forms a parallel to the philosophical dilemmas we sometimes find ourselves pondering around late-night munchies and Insta stories. The moral threads connecting these narratives unfurl beautifully, revealing that even in the deepest shadows of existence, light can flicker. We make decisions serenely, somehow muddling through what we know and what we hope to change. By now, I can feel the blanket getting cozier, a gentle invitation to lean closer to these unfolding tales. It warms the heart imagining that through community and humor, even the darkest figures carried remnants of life and connection. Exchanging stories over a pint or sharing morbid stories might have made lives richer, creating a curious scaffold of respect, even as the executioners chopped through peaks and valleys of existence. Let's keep this ball rolling as we travel through the tapestry of executioners and their worlds, shifting gears as we explore the flickers of hope and humor that defined their struggles. The night holds so much more within its grasp, tales eagerly waiting to be unveiled in the company of your comforting presence. Grab that cozy drink again. There's warmth to discover in the heart of history. Let's plunge deeper into this quirky narrative, friend, because there's more wonder waiting to unfold. As we wrap ourselves in the warmth of this narrative, let's dive deeper into the complex nature of community and identity that surrounded our medieval executioners. Just think about it. In a world that seemed more fixated on the darker side of existence, their roles formed a peculiar tapestry, interwoven with tales of tragedy, humor, and humanity. It's the kind of cozy historical narrative that makes you shake your head in disbelief while chuckling softly, like when you accidentally send a meme meant for your best friend to your boss instead. Picture the executioners strolling through their towns, cloaks billowing behind them, and you can just imagine the mix of nervous giggles and tense whispers that would follow. Oh no, it's old Thaddeus. Better not let him catch you breaking a city rule. The townsfolk maintained a peculiar fascination with them, much like the way we cling to celebrity infamy today. Imagine a modern-day reality TV show spin-off, Keeping Up with the Executioners. Each week, viewers tune in to see how they balance their heavy head-rolling duties with community potlucks and dodgeball tournaments. One intriguing historical tidbit is that executioners often had a certain charm that attracted townsfolk. In some regions, their ability to put on a show during executions turned them into local celebrities of sorts. Think about it. Maybe they knew how to tell a great yarn to distract everyone just before a beheading took place. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round. For today's main event, I'll not only solve your life's problems, but throw in a bonus laugh. Can you see the captivated crowd? Much like your friends creating their own best-of compilation of epic fail videos, their stories garnered attention, entertainment, and camaraderie. Historians still passionately argue about whether this eccentric allure made executioners objects of admiration, like local legends in their own right, or if they merely skimmed the periphery of society, never truly accepted. Could these paradoxical personas represent the lingering commentary on how society grapples with morality and the duality of human experience? After all, can one genuinely separate the profession from the person, especially when their craft is steeped in death and despair? It's almost akin to the age-old question of whether we can be a friend to our favorite guilty pleasure without feeling some form of guilt ourselves. Maybe the answer lies somewhere between the cracks of moral complexity. So, imagine this. Families would gather in their homes, huddled close as the autumn chill rolled in. The children, ears perked up, would lean in to hear the latest executioner gossip. Did you hear that old Edwin managed to behead the mayor's pet goat by mistake? It's a juxtaposition of such profound chaos that you can't help but giggle, imagining the executioner sheepishly trying to explain themselves at the dinner table. "Apologies, sir. The colours of your goat really distracted me." As laughter erupted, it's easy to envision the lines between humour and horror blurring together, crushing awkwardness like the final remnants of cake at a birthday party. At the heart of this vibrant guild of executioners, however, lay a darkness that they carried with them. The emotional toll of their profession might be difficult to fully grasp, this constant grappling with morality. Yet, their ability to draw humour from such sorrowful experiences reveals layers of resilience carved into the fabric of their society. I can already hear you chuckling, comparing this to your tendency to avoid chores by diving deep into the abyss of binge-watching, trying to squeeze out some joy from procrastination. Sure, I've put it off for a week, but boy, this series really is a delight. As executioners mingled among townsfolk, it's fascinating to ponder what conversations must have been shared during evening banquets. One might casually swap tales of the day. "Oh, you should have seen me today. Missed my mark for the 5th time this week." Laughter could ripple through the evening air, breaking apart high-tension moments. Isn't it comforting to think that those engaged in some of the most difficult tasks also sought out connection through shared laughter? And speaking of connections, let's touch upon how executioners were often the subject of superstitious beliefs. Local lore told of their supposed godlike statuses. Some villagers lived in fear that antagonizing these figures might lead to a curse, or worse. Discontent with the fate doled out by the executioner might compromise community security. Imagine the look on someone's face when they accidentally crossed paths with an executioner at the market. "Oops, sorry old Alphonse. I didn't mean to bump into you while shopping for potatoes." The executioner's reputation would likely precede them, causing villagers to make an exaggerated performance out of sidestepping their path, more akin to an old-school dance move than avoiding an axe wielder. Historians even brush upon whether this superstition fortified executioners' roles in the community as more of a lurking presence, a shadow that amplified the moral quandaries of justice and punishment. Maybe they thrived on these fears, but truthfully, who could blame them? It's much like how we often react to real-life dilemmas. Should I actually send this text? A moment of hesitation, accentuated by the hiss of the sentiment hanging in the air, just like the unforgettable risk of crossing paths with fate at an awkward family gathering. Now, as we gather under the moonlight of our narrative, let's not forget how this interplay of power and vulnerability emanated through the hearts of both executioners and townsfolk alike. The more we talk about the dual nature of their existence, the more the layers unfold, revealing connections that transcend time and space. It's that unwavering search for acceptance, even within the chaos. Just as our friends help balance the morose nature of adulting with occasional humor, executioners leverage their stories and antics to communicate the complexities of life and death. They spun the echo of laughter around their necks as a shield from the sorrow they faced every day. So, let's take another refreshing breath together before we plunge onward. With every tale woven through this history, revealing moral threads, laughter, and connection, not only does it remind us of the medieval existence, but it also mirrors the shifts in our own narratives happening every day. As we glide smoothly into the next part of our odd yet comforting journey, I can feel the stories around us bubbling with the joy of discovery. What more lies ahead in the tales of these unique figures? Ones woven with the threads of humor and shadow. Let's untangle more of their intricate fables. There's plenty waiting to be discovered in the warm embrace of history. So settle in a bit further. It's time to dive deeper into the curious life of our beloved executioners. As we wrap our minds and hearts around the life and times of these medieval executioners, let's drift into the deeper recesses of their stories and the communities they served. With the gentle hum of the night wrapping around us like a cozy quilt, we delve into how their roles defined not only themselves, but also reshaped the towns and villages entwined in their whirlwind of shadows and strange humor. Imagine it, a chilly evening in a close-knit village, where whispers barely break the silence, and every flicker of torchlight trembles against the stone walls. Executions were not just moments of dread, they almost turned into social occasions. Crowds gathered out of morbid curiosity, creating an atmosphere akin to a modern-day fair, but throw in a twist of horror. What's on tonight, folks? The comedy show, only if it involves decapitation. Who knew gallows and guillotines could attract spectators like a popular band? That's right, let's plan dinner around that. Now here's something to chuckle about. Occasionally, the executioner would even perform a small show before the grim task at hand. Imagine walking into the town square, axe in one hand, and in the other, a juggling act with, you guessed it, poor, reluctant potatoes. Hey folks, watch me slice through your expectations while juggling this tater. Zas. It's the irony of balancing horrific trade with a flair for performance, pulling in crowds eager for thrill and spectacle. You can almost hear the commentary flying around. Is he going to drop a head or a potato? Stay tuned. The humor that emerged from such grim prospects had to be mind-boggling. As odd as it may seem, the executioners avoided the scorn poured upon them through clever charm. They often became known for their quips and puns, a bit like those relentless dad jokes you try to escape at family reunions. What's the secret to my precision? I've just got excellent aim. It paints a rather comical scene, doesn't it? You can picture the communal conversations brimming with laughter, where villagers would respond, humoured yet bewildered. There he goes again, dressing up despair in a coat of humour. Here's another interesting historical fact to chew on. Some executioners maintained a strict code of professionalism, ensuring that they recognized the humanity of those they would execute. This blurred the lines of their role and expanded the emotional complexity of their existence. They had to grapple with the responsibility of their craft, often offering last words of comfort to those condemned. Imagine the inner monologue going on as executioners wielded their axes. Okay, we're not exactly heads together in this. There's still work to do. Sounds eerily akin to preparing dinner amid chatter, or dishing out your best puns while staring down a messy kitchen. All this leads us into the heart of that gripping debate. Historians still ponder whether the executioner's humanity elevated the weight of their profession and made the gruesome task more palatable for society. Were they seen as merciful figures, easing souls into the unknown? Or were they still merely instruments of societal punishment, cloaked in misunderstanding and fear? Think of how easily we can connect at today's dinner tables compared to the somber atmosphere that enveloped executioners in their communities, a subtle reflection of how our lives echo with complexity. For a moment, let's pivot into the quirkier aspects of their lives. Striking bargains became a common occurrence. Some executioners charged a fee for favoring certain individuals, or even softened the edges of a sentence for coin. Imagine a black market of sorts, with villagers scheming in whispers. Psst, I hear if you pay extra, old Baldric will make it a much cleaner slice. Their relationship with money and justice turned into a dance as social dynamics took center stage amidst the lingering air of finality. There's more to discuss. These practices foreshadowed the nuanced relationship the medieval world had with morality. Executioners weren't devoid of choice. They relished in the possibilities they could manipulate amidst the chaos of a grim vocation. It reminded me of when we juggle our tasks and deadlines, hoping to keep the balance without falling headlong into chaos. Okay, I promised to meal prep. Why am I sitting here scrolling TikToks instead? Let's not forget about the impossibly essential aspect of death itself, a looming presence woven into the very foundation of their jobs. Executioners often participated in religious ceremonies, offering prayers at the gallows for the souls of the condemned, blurring the lines between sinner and savior. They navigated the fine line of community reverence, while their vocation clung to them like an ill-fitting cloak. Historians continue to debate whether it was this intersection of faith and duty that contributed to their duality, heroes of justice or agents of fear. Are they the misunderstood figures trying to bring order to the chaos, or do they just relish the power at their fingertips? As you stroll right alongside me through this shared journey, let's touch on how these executioners likely found companionship in the most atypical circles. Friends were, after all, as scarce as tidy edges on a complex tapestry. Somehow, their trade forged connections with other misunderstood figures in society. Oh, you're a butcher too. I feel you, pal. Bonds grew among fellow outcasts in a charming show of solidarity, rekindling the flickering flames of humor and understanding through their shared aspirations. The laughter shared among such ragtag groups must have been potent, almost as electrifying as a well-spun yarn at bedtime. Isn't it delightful to imagine them gathering around a flickering campfire after a hard day's work, exchanging bemusing tales? So how about that time I dropped my axe and sliced my own foot instead? If that doesn't sound like camaraderie through shared bewilderment, I don't know what does. In those moments, their lives echoed through laughter, illuminating the friendships built in the shadow of uncertainty. The perfect reminder that we can find warmth and humor even in the harshest of realities. And as we edge closer to wrapping up this winding narrative, I can sense a crescendo building, a desire to ponder the legacies left behind by those rugged executioners. How did they shape the perceptions of life and death in their communities? Were they rightful bearers of justice, or mere constructs of society's fears? The echoes of questions like these weave through the very heart of our shared humanity. So, snug in our blankets and cradled in this story, let's gently transition to the next part of our cozy exploration. We've only skimmed the surface of these captivating tales, capturing the remnants of humor and complexity strung together with the threads of fate. Let's delve deeper into the legacies they left behind, deciphering how their tales cast long shadows in the annals of history. Buckle up, my friend. There's still so much more waiting in the wings, ready to unfold. As we nestle back into our cozy nook, let's cast our minds forward and begin to unpack the legacies left by these medieval executioners. How these enigmatic figures influenced the very fabric of their communities, seen as both feared and fascinating, governed by the societal structures of their time that resonate even in our modern lives today. What must it have been like to be an executioner, knowing your daily duties were the pulse of a community that danced between admiration and dread? Imagine the quiet corners of taverns where townspeople would gather, half enthused by tales of the day's grim work, but also imbued with an awkward reverence. So, how's old Baldric faring these days? Still at the guillotine? Or has he moved on to a less horrific trade? Sipping ale, they'd lean in with that conspiratorial whisper, riding the wave of both fear and fascination. Executioners became the fodder of intrigue, as well as the careful balance of morality woven into the town's very narratives. And here's a fun historical fact. Many folk tales and stories sprouted from the whispers of townsfolk, presenting executioners not just as stewards of punishment, but as figures of folklore, sometimes likened to heroes of a twisted sort. They became essential in maintaining the narrative of right and wrong, characters in their own right, complete with flaws and virtues, embodying the complexities of human existence. Picture it on the rolls of parchment. Once there was an executioner named Harold who wielded his axe with grace, yet struggled with guilt. After all, he just wanted to be loved. Historians dive deep into these narratives, still mulling over whether such tales represented romanticized notions of justice or whether they depicted sinister realities. As much as we muse about how we craft our identities on social media, they too wrestled with perceptions that etched their names into the minds of villagers. Are the carefully crafted personas we project akin to the warped versions of reality that crowded the minds of those looking at executioners? But let's not forget this significant layer. Executioners often faced a relentless burden of not just their work, but also the perceptions from those around them. They inhabited a peculiar limbo space, finding companionship among fellow outcasts, while also knowing that the allure of their power could turn into a heavy shackle binding them to despair. Much like how we feel when we say one thing on social media, but have a different emotional undercurrent within. Their realities painted a stark picture of duality and struggle. And as we step into the tales of legacy, let's reflect on the archival remnants that still captivate imaginations today. Medieval depictions of executioners were often filled with absurdity, humor, and stark realism woven into their narratives. Did you know there are historical records referencing executioners, often humorously framed, performing in traveling theatre troupes? They took their axe to neighboring towns, armed with much more than just their axes, drawing intrigued audiences who sipped mead while enjoying the bizarre performances. Ladies and gentlemen, behold the perilous drama of the axe and the juggling act of fate. Their stories rivaled those we'd find on contemporary streaming platforms where gritty history meets absurdity, showcasing the balance between life and death with flavors of theatricality. Hold on to your seats. Here comes the latest episode of Executioner's Drama, promising more twists than your favorite soap opera. It's a delicate balance, brushing against the surreal while capturing the human experience in its vivid forms. But peer beyond the laughter, and you'll uncover more maddening mysteries surrounding their legacies. Executioners often found themselves thrust into the lens of historical interpretation, giving way to recurring themes of redemption and morality. Historians mull over whether these figures offered solace in communities torn between order and chaos, receiving both fear and grudging respect, akin to how we hold conflicting ideologies about certain public figures today. Were they protectors of the realm or merely puppets of a flawed justice system? As we thread our way through these tales, it's important to consider how executioners carried the weight of societal expectations, their roles steeped in moral quandaries and existential dilemmas with ripples felt far beyond their time. Comparatively, it mirrors our own contemporary struggles. Those moments when we grapple for acceptance amid conflicting identities we juggle in our lives. Am I a responsible adult or still that kid who Googles how to fold a fitted sheet? Even as we dissect their narratives, they acted as mediators, navigating justice and consequence, much like we do today, filtering the cacophony of information through whatever prism we feel suits our reality best. The intertwining of tales shared through centuries showcases the inevitability of laughter and darkness, together flashing a spotlight onto the complexity of human nature itself. And here's another sweet twist, a reminder that executioners left their marks on societal structures, where their presence evoked not just fear, but also the critique of broader systems of power. People couldn't merely ignore them, they had to live with the ramifications of their actions. This leads into ongoing scholarly debates surrounding the nuances of capital punishment, as executioners guided the local perception of justice and morality, pulling on threads that resonate with our current dialogues around these weighty topics. As we round out our exploration, let's take a moment to witness how these histories inform our present, injecting life into the very questions that provoke thought about justice, empathy, and entertainment. Modern media may cast executioners in a dark light, reflecting on their roles while often merging reality with fiction. How many movies or TV shows base characters on these historical figures, transforming them into beings, wrestling with complex identities analogous to our shared human experience? So let's pause here for a moment, nestled beneath our shared blanket. The stories of executioners stretch far beyond physical tasks. They embody the battles that humanity faces, echoes of life and death resonating throughout history. In the face of moral dilemmas, they somehow shape the world with a blend of uncertainty and hope, highlighting how we all contend with the varying masks we wear daily. As we glide toward the final segments of our whimsical journey, I sense the hum of stories still waiting to be uncovered, each one strumming a delicate balance of humor, tragedy, and humanity. Let's wander just a little bit further into this delightful tapestry of history, one final time, and savor the excitement of what we have yet to unravel. I assure you, dear friend, there are tales of absurdity and warmth just waiting for us beyond this cozy space. So let's drift gently into the next chapter. As we drift further into our story, let's wade into the myths and realities that executioners left behind, painting a vivid picture of how their legacies shaped perceptions of justice in their communities, and how those narratives transformed over the centuries. The night is still and quiet, similar to the way townsfolk might have hushed before an execution, eyes wide and whispers barely audible in the chilling air. Imagine a collective stillness before an event that would blend horror and spectacle into the lives of everyone present. Throughout history, executioners held a precarious position, a mix of reverence intertwined with fear. With a heavy axe slung over one shoulder, they represented the intense dichotomy of law and personal morality. These figures carried the burden of making significant decisions that quite literally hung over their towns. Think about what it must have felt like to know that your very hands dictated life and death within your village. It's almost like finding yourself tasked with making a pivotal choice in a group project. So, do we build the prototype or go straight for the presentation? Among those burdens, executioners often became the subject of folklore and exaggerated tales, much like figures from modern media that we spin into our narratives. They transformed into embodiments of moral lessons, character arcs woven with complexity. Some stories depicted them as reluctant agents of justice, hinting at their longing for redemption. Others portrayed them as cold-hearted professionals, devoid of empathy. Imagine a modern-day fictional series where the executioner moonlights as an emotional support pet therapist. There's a room full of confused cats and dogs, eager for love, while our grim figure tries to maneuver through the barks and meows. It's an endearing contrast that speaks to the depths of human experience. In reality, Executioners occasionally forged their paths toward acceptance or fame. Some were known to have their own brands of professionalism, becoming respected figures even among the nobility, as they meticulously performed their duties with a sense of dignity that fused both skill and gravity. What's his secret? One might ask a bustling crowd at the tavern. Old Thaddeus has an elegant swing. He practically dances with that axe. Imagine the murmurs of admiration swirling above frothy mugs of ale. The really cheeky townsfolk might sassily quip, "Well, he certainly knows how to get ahead." Digging deeper into the complexity of their legacies, we can see echoes of societal attitudes toward death, reflected back in how executioners navigated their tasks. They were often caught in a whirlpool of moral complexities akin to the struggles we face today. With every swing of their axes, they grappled with questions surrounding justice that still plague our societies now. Historians engage in vibrant discussions, questioning how these figures, who, in reality, brought about irreversible conclusions, managed to intertwine empathy and duty while upholding the weight of society's expectations. An equally interesting tidbit is how executioners sometimes befriended the clergy, seeking moral fortitude and support in their dark undertaking. It's similar to how we often lean on friends or mentors when metaphysical dilemmas loom. Imagine our executioner discussing their challenges over a tankard of mead. "So, Father, do I swing this axe with a smile, or do I brace for the guilt, asking for a village?" It paints a vivid image, does it not? The conversations were likely tinged with longing to reconcile these weighty duties, a performance threaded with both mirth and sorrow that transcended their trades. Interestingly, public sentiment around executions also ebbed and flowed, shifting like the tide based on politics, societal trauma, and even prominent events. Historians argue whether significant moments, such as wars or famine, shaped public perception of the executioner's role. Were they ultimately symbols of despair or harbingers of justice? Picture a town in the depths of a famine, and as the executioner walks through, there's the hushed acknowledgement of his grim duties merging with the humorous debate over whether it's time to invest in new vegetables or simply accept their fate. Quite the culinary metaphor, right? Just like the complicated relationships we navigate today, executioners contended with the difficulty of ingraining themselves in the fabric of those collective narratives. Did they influence a lasting change in society's approach to justice, or were they merely cogs in the wheel of a broader moral framework? The discussions these figures incited are what kept alive the echoes of humanity taught through the ages. Through every era of exploration, these men emerged as insightful reflections of how society veers into mythic tales and real histories woven together. They etched their names significantly into the communal consciousness. Imagine the litany of arguments held over candle-lit tavern tables, generating gales of laughter, curiosity, and criticisms. Their lives had the potential to shape broader discussions of ethics and legality that ripple through time. In these moments of rich storytelling, these executioners represented the complexities of existence itself, mirroring each of our own experiences, grappling with our roles in our respective communities. With every sip of ale, they could have absorbed the conflicting opinions of townsfolk, spinning tales of heroism and horror into vibrant stories echoing through centuries. What a poignant note to ponder tonight. How the lives of these historical figures hold relevance in our own narratives today. So, as our journey weaves toward its end, let's take a moment to appreciate the profound connections we've established through these tales. The mix of heartwarming humor and chilling realities that define the lives of executioners serves as a reflection of humanity's ceaseless journey through the struggle of morality, acceptance, and the quirks of everyday existence. It's as if we've uncovered an ancient storybook filled with frayed pages, echoing centuries of humanity, laughter, and existential musings, reminding us of the absurd yet real connections we sustain in every facet of life. As we prepare to wind down, let's cherish this knowledge we've amassed. These stories don't merely culminate into a lesson on executioners. They ripple out, capturing the essence of what it means to navigate the complex tapestry of existence. In their shadows, lies laughter, empathy, and even uncertainty, much like our own fables. Now, let's cozy up in our blankets one last time and allow ourselves the warmth and peace of reflection. There's untold comfort in these connections we discover amid histories intertwined, and I hope you feel as snug in this narrative as a sleepy cat curled in your lap. So let's breathe in this moment, allowing ourselves to drift gently as we savor the history, quirks, and bittersweet lessons, yet lingering in the quiet corners of our minds. Together, let's fade into the tales of warmth and humanity that linger on long after the stories have been shared. As we gently weave our way to the closing moments of this storytelling journey, let's take one final deep breath together, exhaling softly as we savor the depth of the characters we've encountered. The medieval executioners, those shadowy figures wrapped in the complexities of life and death, have guided us through a tapestry filled with laughter, absurdity, and poignant reflection. These tales remind us that even in the darker corners of history, humor and humanity intertwine, illuminating the paths we navigate daily. Imagine, if you will, the echoes of laughter that filled taverns as townsfolk gathered to share a drink after a day of witnessing the grim realities of their world. Perhaps they raised their tankards high, exchanging stories of each executioner's quirks. Did you hear about the day old Greg forgot his axe and used a carrot instead? Chuckling as they illustrated the conjured imagery of mysterious dalliances beyond their grim vocations. It's that whimsical imagery that ties the absurd to the real, much like how we find ourselves laughing while scrolling through funny TikToks to keep from crying at the weightiness of adult life. As we peel back the layers of these narratives, we see how executioners encapsulated the dualities of existence. They stood resolutely at the crossroads of morality, perception, and humanity, shaping the conversations around justice while exploring the boundaries of their own identities. It's a poignant reminder that even in positions of power, vulnerability continues to thrive, an intricate balance between duty and self that many of us grapple with daily. While historical debates around executioners' roles still swirl, they continue to fascinate modern audiences, echoing through literature, film, and even social media. What is it about these complex figures that captures our imaginations? Perhaps it's the blend of dread and intrigue, the intimate glimpse into those who dwell in the shadows while facing the very fabric of our moral fabric. Historians still grapple with the question, did executioners serve merely as symbols of fear, or were they, in some cases, the unsung heroes of the societies they operated within? And as we take a moment to reflect upon the human experience, it becomes evident that laughter, connection, and vulnerability remain fundamental elements of our reality. Just like those evenings when we share laughter with friends over shared chaos, executioners too inhabited a unique space that demanded acknowledgement and empathy. The laughs exchanged over grim tasks may serve as a poignant reminder that life is often a tapestry woven from both darkness and humor, guiding us along paths of understanding and acceptance. As our discussion transitions into softer hues, I feel the gentle hum of these stories return, offering us a chance to harness empathy as we explore the contradictions of human nature. Much like the way we carefully manage our relationships in search of harmony, we see executioners balancing their duties with their desire for acceptance and connection. Am I doing this right? Echoes through both the annals of history and the chambers of our minds as we navigate the complexities of our lives. Allow yourself to settle into the flow of these realizations, drawing parallels to the modern complexities we navigate. Whether scrolling through life's decisions or facing moral dilemmas, we continue dancing with our own shadows while seeking connection and understanding in our daily lives. Just as medieval executioners transformed their realities through humor and camaraderie, we too can find solace and empathy amidst the chaos. As we prepare to gently bring this narrative to a close, take a look back at the journey we embarked upon together, one that traversed the winding paths of history, laughter, and morality. Think of the moments spent pondering the intricate lives of executioners, giggling over quirky hypothetical scenarios, and embracing the parallels that link their lives to our own. In the stillness of our collective reflection, recognizing the warmth of connection that unites us, even when we grapple with profound feelings of fear and uncertainty, can bring light into the dark corners of existence. Because within all those tales lies the true essence of humanity, a tapestry woven of laughter, tears, choices, and introspection that binds every one of us together through time. So let's nestle into this peaceful moment, cherishing the rich characters and their stories as they linger lovingly within our hearts and imaginations. Here, in the comfort of this narrative, we can appreciate the echoes of wisdom aimed at exploring our own lives with compassion and understanding. Remember that just like the executioners sought camaraderie amid their heavy tasks, we too can try to find light in our interactions and extend kindness to ourselves and others. For now, as we drift into tranquil reflections, let the stories we've shared wash over you, an invitation to explore the intricate dance between light and shadow, joy and sorrow. And as you bask in these thoughts, may you find comfort and warmth in the knowledge that even the most peculiar tales can lead us to the heart of what it truly means to be human. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, dear friend. Let's tuck these stories away gently in our minds and carry the echoes with us as we slip into dreams, allowing the warmth of laughter and humanity to cradle us through the quiet night. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with inspiration and understanding. As the gentle embrace of night wraps around us like a soft blanket, let's take one last leisurely stroll through the remnants of our journey. The tales of medieval executioners fade into the soft glow of candles, but their legacies linger, embedding themselves in our thoughts like a cozy storybook we're reluctant to close. You might find yourself reflecting on how these enigmatic figures navigated the fine lines of duty, morality, and society's gaze, sparking a blend of fear, respect, and humor that echoes through the ages. Let's reminisce about how these executioners defied the odds and carved a niche for themselves amidst the shadows of judgment. Despite the agony that may have accompanied their roles, they managed to infuse their lives with a dose of absurdity, much like how we might tackle our daily challenges, with a dash of humor to lighten the load. Why do I keep pressing snooze on my responsibilities? Because I need the extra me time to mentally prepare for the chaos. In a way, their stories weave into our understanding of what it means to be human, complex beings capable of love, sorrow, and the occasional laugh in the face of adversity. This reflects how we too may sometimes juggle contradictory feelings, like when we simultaneously crave connection yet want our alone time, or when we suppress laughter at inappropriate moments, caught between decorum and genuine amusement. It's not just about the role they played in carrying out judgment, it's also about how their interactions shaped community dynamics. Picture the scene. Townsfolk in a rowdy pub, animatedly debating the latest executioner's antics, their voices mixing with the sounds of clinking glasses and hearty laughter. Did you see how he almost tripped while showing off his act? I thought we'd need a head count after that. This light-hearted banter amidst dire realities serves as a poignant reminder that even in the bleakest circumstances, human connection can thrive. As we trace the delicate threads of these relationships, it's important to acknowledge how executioners often found solace in the camaraderie of their communities. They shared meals, exchanged stories, and formed bonds that allowed them a reprieve from their burdens. Picture them at a festive gathering, blending in among the crowd, quips flying as easily as ale. Hey, at least I'm not the one with the last name Doom. That's got to be more confusing than my job. What? The chuckles would ripple through the air, offering a soothing balm to their otherwise somber realities. Moreover, we should reflect on how their tales ultimately remind us of the timeless struggle between dark and light, the persistent human quest for understanding despite the looming shadows of fear and judgment. Just as we seek clarity in the chaos of our own lives, often digging for meaning amidst the noise, so too did these figures earnestly navigate their own labyrinths of morality, trying to make sense of their roles in an unpredictable world. Let's take a moment to return to that tavern scene. With laughter bubbling among the townsfolk, you can almost sense the echoes of the past merging with the present, an ongoing conversation that stretches through time. Imagine a jovial executioner cracking jokes about life and fate as stories unfold in the dim light, reminding us that even those tasked with grim duties deserve moments of joy and laughter. It speaks beautifully to the notion that, while they wore the mantle of death, they were also inherently human, filled with desires to connect and bond. And now, as we approach the serene conclusion of our exploration, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on the true nature of the bond we share, not just with those who wield axes, but with the quirky shades of existence we encounter in our everyday lives. It's the laughter we savor, the stories we weave, and the humanity we foster that form the very essence of our shared experiences. As the candles flicker and the soft glow of this story casts comforting shadows around us, remember that the tales of executioners are not merely grim histories entailed in dusty books. They serve as explorations of how we confront our own adversities, an invitation to acknowledge our flaws while finding humor in imperfection. It's a gentle reminder that we too can embrace our complexities, dance with our shadows, and forge connections in even the darkest of times. So, as you cozy deeper into your blanket, I hope you carry these stories with you, remnants of laughter and introspection blended together like the sweet aroma of lazy afternoon tea wafting through the air. Let these tales linger in your thoughts, whispering of resilience and connection, guiding you through any uncertainties you may face on your own journey. May you find peace as you drift off into dreams filled with warmth and humor, ready to rise anew, embracing both the light and dark that weave through the fabric of existence. Good night, dear friend, and may your heart remain open to the laughter and wonders that await you in the morrow. As we nestle into the soft shadows of our cozy haven, let's gently stir the remnants of our conversations one last time. The night wraps around us like a familiar hug, inviting us to reflect not only on the stories of medieval executioners, but on the broader connections we share through the human experience. It's a peaceful moment, one where the past intertwines with our present thoughts, much like we perceive our own lives. An ongoing narrative filled with twists, turns, and unexpected humor. Imagine the village square, still echoing with the laughter of the townsfolk and warmth of shared stories, where executioners mingled like stars in a dark sky, captivating yet distant. They were individuals shaped by their experiences, navigating their identities within a world that frequently viewed them through a lens of fear and misunderstanding. It invites us to ponder how often we find ourselves grappling with similar perceptions in our daily lives. Do they see me as I am, or do they only perceive the roles I play? The questions linger in the air, heavy yet enlightening. As we reflect, think about the importance of camaraderie during trying times. Medieval executioners often found solace and support among their peers, forging bonds that transcended their grim professions. Can you picture those evenings spent cradling tankards of mead, where the gravity of their tasks melted away in the warmth of companionship? So, how's the chopping business these days? Still keeping your skills sharp, eh? The playful banter echoes the very sentiments we share with our friends, how we navigate complexities while finding joy amid the peculiarities of our lives. There's something heartwarming about that, how human connection becomes a source of strength and resilience. While executioners face judgments and stigma outside their circles, within the warm embrace of friendship, they became relatable figures, echoing the comforting laughter we all seek when dealing with our own respective challenges. Much like discussing the latest viral video with friends while simultaneously acknowledging life's messiness, they thrived in their informal gatherings, where humor intertwined with the seriousness of their responsibilities. Historical accounts of executioners also portray them as individuals longing for redemption. In many tales, there existed a flicker of hope, narratives woven from the threads of remorse and communal understanding. Picture an executioner recounting moments from his life, hesitating at the edge of acknowledgement. I never wanted to be the bringer of death. I wanted to hold hands, tell stories, and share laughter. That longing resonates with us all, doesn't it? We too navigate our own complexities, wishing for understanding in both moments of joy and despair. As we shift our focus, let's delve into the quandaries that these figures faced, how they grappled with the morality of their actions while trying to strike a balance in society. Historians continually explore whether executioners portrayed genuine remorse or if their professional detachment was merely a coping mechanism. Much like how we sometimes question whether our laughter hides deeper fears, their stories reveal the complexities of the human condition. How fascinating it is to see how these themes resonate through both time and circumstance. Think about the many times we grapple with similar inner turmoil, like when we joke about adulting, yet quietly reflect on our fears over change and uncertainty. Am I really ready for this next step? We might ask ourselves while scrolling through endless memes that poke fun at the absurdities of life, keen to find solace in humor. And there's a beauty that emerges from acknowledging these human facets. Executioners serve as vivid reminders to us all: the laughter shared, the struggles faced, the constant quest for understanding and acceptance. They trod paths filled with difficulties while seeking connection, hope, and even humanity in their roles. As we start to wrap this journey in a soft embrace, let's carry with us the light of their stories, the intertwining of shadow and humor, fear and acceptance, reminding us of the compelling nature of our existence. Each narrative carries echoes of laughter and whispers of sorrow, urging us to extend empathy not only to others, but also to ourselves. Preparing to drift into the gentle embrace of sleep, I encourage you to let these tales rest easy in your heart. The stories of executioners are more than morbid histories. They are windows into the collective struggles we all face. Each page flips through the complexities of existence, akin to our own anecdotes that forge connections among friends, families, and communities. As the night deepens, may you find comfort in the knowledge that even within the most daunting paths or tasks, warmth and understanding abound. Take a moment to revel in the beauty of being alive, where stories intertwine, much like the patterns on your favorite cozy blanket. A tapestry woven from joy, resilience, and shared humanity. Thank you for sharing this journey through the whimsical and the profound, the laughter echoing through history. May your dreams tonight be filled with warmth, humor, and the delightful complexities that shape the world around us. Good night, dear friend, and may you awaken with a renewed sense of wonder and connection in your heart. As the silence of night envelops us in a gentle embrace, we find ourselves at the final threshold of our exploration, the lingering echoes of our medieval executioners, whose lives remind us of the intricate dance between humor and tragedy. Their stories, rich with absurdity and earnestness, serve as both mirrors and lenses, reflecting the complexities of our own human experiences. Let's take a moment to breathe, allowing the weight of these tales to settle comfortably in our minds. Think about how, much like our executioners of old, we all juggle the dichotomies of life, the solemn and the joyous, the challenging and the absurd. Did I really just laugh at that meme after my third existential crisis of the week? It's a curious blend, isn't it? How humor can emerge unexpectedly, a light amid the shadows. As we turn our gaze back to the medieval village, picture the sun low in the sky, casting long shadows across cobblestone streets, where the clatter of boots echoed from the market square. The townspeople revel in their conversations, gossip swirling like autumn leaves in a playful breeze. Down the street, an executioner strolls, his presence eliciting a mixture of admiration and trepidation. The villagers murmur to one another. There goes old Victor, the man who holds lives in his hands yet still manages a smile. It's akin to the way we sometimes perceive those in roles of authority today. Our curious blend of respect and wariness shapes how we relate to them. Are they mere figures of power, Or are they multifaceted beings striving for connection amidst their responsibilities? It's a query that hums in the background of our nattering conversations, echoing the very core of what it means to be human. As people shared their tales around dinner tables, one would rise to recount the latest spectacle. Did you witness the way he swung that axe? Someone really should hire him for the county fair. Laughter would bubble up, creating a camaraderie that united the crowd, providing a protective layer against the harsh realities surrounding them. How comforting it must have felt to transform fear into laughter, just as we often turn our anxieties into jokes to ease the weight of our uncertainty. Even among their hardships, executioners sought warmth, forming connections that transcended the duties they bore. Can you visualize them gathering together, speaking in hushed tones, swapping stories while supporting one another in the shadows? Remember that time I forgot to sharpen my axe? I think the condemned man felt sorry for me. It echoes the countless moments we share, slipping into the warmth of understanding amid the air thick with life's complexities. And now, as we wade through this tale, let's delve into the power of storytelling fused with imagination. Just as executioners spun their own narratives, we too have the ability to shape our experiences through the stories we tell ourselves and share with each other. The threads of our lives entwine, forming a rich tapestry filled with laughter, love, and even the occasional quirk. Historians may still debate the ethics and roles of executioners, but now we understand their stories are not just remnants of a bygone era. They resonate within us today. Whether we're navigating complex relationships, juggling responsibilities, or longing for acceptance, their experiences remind us that laughter can unite even the most unlikely of characters. Let's take another moment to reflect. Think of how we often share our struggles with friends, weaving tales of our day-to-day lives, how we too express vulnerability and bravely reveal our fears. You wouldn't believe what I had to tackle today, we might say, eliciting giggles and empathy, binding ourselves together through shared narratives. As we prepare to tuck this exploration away, it's essential to recognize the power of connection within our own lives and communities. Much like the bonds forged by those medieval executioners, remind yourself how laughter lightens burdens, nurtures relationships, and fosters understanding. It's the heart of humanity, not just the executioner's tales woven through time, but our very own stories connecting us and allowing us to breathe through life's absurdities. Think back to those evenings filled with laughter and companionship, where we forged friendships through shared experiences. May we all strive to create such spaces of warmth and connection, allowing ourselves to feel seen and understood. So as your eyelids grow heavier and the comfort of the night settles around you, know that the laughter and empathy shared within this exploration continue to linger, filling the air with a sense of solace. Let the echoes of these stories integrate within you, guiding you into dreams woven with warmth and kindness. Thank you for venturing through the winding paths of history with me. May you carry forward the lessons learned, humor in the darkest places, connection amid uncertainty, and the value of every shared story. Good night, dear friend, and dream sweetly of all the moments yet to come, filled with laughter and light. The world awaits your own story, ready to be written anew. As the soothing embrace of night lingers in the air and the gentle quietness envelops us, let's take just one more moment to unfurl the remaining nuances in the tales of those medieval executioners. There's something inherently magical about how their lives intertwine with our own, crafting threads that lead us to reflect on our shared humanity. A beautiful tapestry, woven not only from laughter, but also from the struggles we all encounter along the way. Imagine that quaint village, where cobblestones echo with the footsteps of townsfolk, each person carrying their own burdens while wrapped in the familiar rhythm of life. In this bustling community, the executioner walked a fine line, caught between being a figure of apprehension and one of reluctant acceptance. Picture him in the marketplace, where the air is thick with delicious aromas and the sounds of jovial conversations ricochet against the stone walls. Is that old Frank? Did he really bring the axe to his bake sale? What is he doing? I need to capture that on camera. The delightful absurdity bends and twists, much like our own lives, where sometimes the most unexpected characters become the centerpiece of quirky stories. Executioners were often at the heart of folklore and fables, tales spun from the warmth of shared laughter, evolving with each retelling. As we sit around our own tables today, it isn't all that different, is it? The way we share stories among friends and family, enlarging mundane days into magnificent adventures. You won't believe what happened to me while I was just trying to walk my dog. The roots of storytelling keep us connected, reminding us that while our paths may differ, we often find comfort in shared experiences. And as we reflect on the surreal charm of executioners' interactions, we can't help but chuckle at the thought of famous executioners who somehow transcended their grim reputations. They became local legends in their own right. Some executioners were rumored to have fabled abilities, treating their positions as prestige instead of mere punishment. Just imagine a contemporary executioner municipal figure acting as a community liaison, hosting pub trivia nights, and weaving charming anecdotes about community morals into entertaining tales. Did you know I once spared a man because he brought me the best pie in town? Even amid grave tasks, their presence stirred colourful stories, turning fear into community folklore. Historians often sift through these layers of storytelling, seeking to understand how the narratives shape perceptions of justice, morality, and compassion. Were these executioners truly the villains they seemed to be, or did their roles shift depending on the stories told? It's the same dilemma we face when trying to uncover the true essence of our own narratives. We craft identities layered with complexity, filled with the laughter and challenges of our lives, and we navigate the questions that come with those layers. Do they see the real me behind my carefully curated feed? As we weave together the fabric of these tales, let's remember how our executioners transformed their realities, embracing humor to navigate the tragedy of their tasks. The wiggle and bounce of humor in even the darkest circumstances echo loudly in our own experiences. How often do we hear a joke that instantly lightens a heavy mood in the office or at home? That moment when a shared laugh breaks through, reminding us that being human is a shared experience filled with imperfections, and that's perfectly okay. Now, let's pause and appreciate how history breathes life into these characters. How the tales we weave still resonate today. Those traces of laughter and acknowledgement reflect not just on executioners, but on how we approach our interactions with one another. Think of the nostalgia we feel when recalling our own darkly humorous moments, stories crafted from the absurdities and calamities of day-to-day living, growing stronger as we share them together. And as we weave closer to the end of our journey tonight, let's remember the importance of this reflection. May we carry forward the lessons learned, embracing the laughter, the friendships, and the vulnerabilities that shape us. Much like those executioners who sought connection through camaraderie, we too can strive for empathy in our interactions, bridging the gaps that exist in our lives daily. Let the stories we've shared linger gently in our minds, soft whispers guiding us toward understanding and acceptance. Allow the realization to wash over you, dear friend, that even the most challenging figures carry within them warmth and humanity, just as we all do. As the night deepens and the cozy warmth envelops us like a beloved blanket, may you find peace in these lessons. I hope you carry these narratives of executioners with you, colored with absurdity, warmth, and echoes of shared laughter, reminding you that even in the most complex tales of life, connections thrive in the beauty and messiness of our stories. So let your eyes grow heavy, dear friend. Breathe in this moment and let it settle softly into your heart. The laughter, the stories, and the warmth of humanity await as you drift into restful dreams. Good night, and may your slumber be filled with inspiration, connection, and the wondrous tales that live within us all. Until we journey together again, Sweet dreams.